In the last lecture, we learned how to read text files using the FileReader and BufferedWriter. We explored how BufferedWriter gives us better performance and convenience when handling large files. But reading files is only half the story. What about writing data to files? That's exactly what we are going to cover in this lecture. We are going to learn how to write text files using the FileWriter for writing character data to a file and BufferedWriter for improved performance when writing large amount of text. We will also cover how to append data to existing files and some best practices for handling file output. Similar to the last lecture, before we start coding, let me ask you, why would you need to write data to a file? Think about it. You want to log application events into a text file. You need to create a report or export data into a CSV file. Or you want to save user preferences or game scores. Writing to files allows your program to store data permanently even after the program ends. Let's start with the basics. FileWriter is a character-based stream that allows you to write text files one character at a time. So let's write a simple program which will write some content into the output.txt. Here in the main method, we say FileWriter writer equals a new FileWriter of output.txt. And we put this whole thing inside the try catch block and we'll handle the IO exception. As we discussed in the previous lecture, for any reason if you can't access the file, then we get the IO exception which we need to handle. Now let's use this writer object to write some contents to the file. The FileWriter provides a write method using which we can write the contents to the file. And remember, this write method will write one character at a time to the file. Writer.write, welcome to file handling. Writer.write, let's master FileWriter. And finally we say writer.close. And then we just print a message, data successfully written to the file. So let's understand what we do here. We create a FileWriter object using the file name. The write method writes the text to the file character by character. We close the file using the close method to flush data and release resources. So actually what happens here, when we call the write method, it is written to the memory. And when we call the close method, it flushes the data and releases the resource. The writer method will write character by character and will not introduce a new line after writing this statement. So we want to have this statement in a new line. We need to explicitly introduce a new line here. So we can say writer.write /n. This /n character will introduce a new line between the first statement and the second statement. So let's run this program. And we got the content written to the file. So let's go over to this output.txt file and see whether the content is written over there. Let's open this file. And here we go. We got these lines written to this file. Let's observe a few things with this output.txt. This file was not there before we run the program. And the file was created at the runtime when we run this program. So the FileWriter class will create the file if the file does not exist. And also observe that the file is created at the current directory from where this program is running. Here we have not given any explicit path, and that's the reason this is created in the same directory where this program is running. Suppose we want this file to be created in a different location. We can give the exact path from where the file has to be created. Just like FileReader, FileWriter writes one character at a time. That's fine for small files, but what if you are dealing with large files or lots of data? Writing character by character will be very slow and memory intensive. That's where the BufferedWriter pitches in. Let's modify this program by introducing the BufferedWriter. BufferedWriter equals new BufferedWriter of writer. So we wrap the FileWriter object with the BufferedWriter object. BufferedWriter.write, welcome to Java file handling. BufferedWriter.newline. And we say BufferedWriter.write, let's master BufferedWriter. And finally we close this object, BufferedWriter.close. And we already have the close statement for the FileWriter object. Here we create the FileWriter object using the file name. We then wrap the FileWriter with the BufferedWriter. The write method writes a string to the buffer. The newline method adds a line separator. And the close method flushes the buffer, closes the writer object. Here instead of using the /n, we are using the newline method. It's always better to use a newline method because this method writes a new line based on the operating system. By doing so, we make our code platform independent. We can run it in any platform. And based on the operating system, the new line will be introduced by Java. So let's run this program. And again, let's open this output.txt and check the content. And here we go. We got the content written to this file. And this time we can see it is written using the BufferedWriter object. But here we need to notice one thing. We write some content to this output.txt using the FileWriter object first. We then used the BufferedWriter object to write some other content to the same file. But whatever we had earlier got overwritten. So what if you want to add more data to an existing file without overwriting it? That is, you want to append the existing contents of the file. For this, we need to pass a second argument to the FileWriter object. So here we say FileWriter writer equals new FileWriter of output.txt, comma, true. The second argument, when we say true, it changes the FileWriter object to append mode. By default, this value is false. We will also add a new line here. Now let's run this program. And let's open the output.txt file and we can see the content gets appended. The new data is added at the end of the file without deleting the existing content. Before we wrap up, let's look into some of the best practices which we can follow while writing to a file. Always close the writer object using the close or using the try with resource option. Use BufferedWriter for better performance. Use the new line method instead of using /n for cross-platform compatibility. Handle IO exception to prevent your program from crashing. Use append mode only when necessary to avoid accidental overwrites. So in this lecture, you have learned how to write text files using the FileWriter as well as the BufferedWriter. You also learned how to append data and handle exceptions effectively. In the next lecture, we will take one step further and explore character encoding and decoding, an essential topic when working with different languages and formats. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial. I would love to hear from you, your thought on this tutorial. Please leave your comments at the bottom. Please subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you for watching and see you again soon.